The chains clink, hear the echo in the fog of the land. Dollar bills on the leash, gripped tight by the hand. Eagles clip, can't fly, wings covered in grime. Statues cry, tears of oil, rusted gears at a time. Never bow, never break, never simping again. Simping's a sickness, let the truth be the pen. Trust the plan, they said, but look where we stand. A chessboard flip, now it's war in the sand. Puppet strings pulled tight, marionettes in the hall. Politicians dance smooth while the empire falls. Mountains of debt, can't climb, can't crawl. Truth buried deep beneath the Capitol walls. Drums of war beat heavy, echo loud in the haze. Promises shattered like glass in a maze. Voices scream betrayal, trapped in the blaze. The flag waves torn, lost in forgotten days. Never bow, never break, never simping again. Simping's a sickness, let the truth be the pen. Trust the plan, they said, but look where we stand. A chessboard flip, now it's war in the sand. Never bow, never break, never simping again. Simping's a sickness, let the truth be the pen. Trust the plan, they said, but look where we stand. A chessboard flip, now it's war in the sand. Trump card played wrong, now the deck's in their hands. Deal signed in the dark, bleeding out the land. Fist clenched, eyes sharp, time to make a stand. Own our future, no pawn, just a king in demand. Trump card played wrong, now the deck's in their hands. Deal signed in the dark, bleeding out the land. Fist clenched, eyes sharp, time to make a stand. Own our future, no pawn, just a king in demand.
Hello and welcome in to another episode of Offensively Accurate. I'm your host, yours truly, Atlas Thugged. Man, we have a lot to get into today. Hesitate to say it's going to be a good show, a big show, right? Because obviously that sounds too much like one of my favorite pundits in the space. But we have a lot to get into, and a lot of it's going to be on the social end. So what I would like to start with, though, too, and let me put this on screen actually for you guys. Appreciate seeing everybody in here. The reason I'm on StreamYard today is because I did want to entertain a call-in show. Now, joining me today was supposed to be Donnie. Unfortunately, he cannot make it, or at least not until the very end of the show. So the plan has changed. Call-ins are available from now until the end of the stream. I would like to hear from you guys in person as well. I have this set up as well, too, with the moderators. They can assist you every single step of the way, too. Everything's kind of outlined in the Discord too, but if you notice in the description of the video, you should see the Discord link is at the very top. If you jump in, you sign in, you'll find a communications channel that'll say caller links in here. Just give your name and the reason for calling, and you should get a moderator DMing you a link. That way you can join the show with me. Now, you don't need to have your camera on. You can if you want to. I'd appreciate it if you're ugly. Hold back. No, I'm just messing. But if you do want to come on, you don't have to have your camera on. You can have your camera off. You can pick an icon. It'll show a little radio thing there. But I do want to hear from you guys as well. So I'll be paying attention to that. Moderators will be paying attention to that as well, too. So that's the first item out of the way. Second item I would like to do, well, the elephant in the room. You see the Discord link might be broken. That is unfortunate. Okay, let me fix this immediately. And if not, I'm sure the moderators can put that in there. I won't be able to change it in the description, but what I can do actually is put a Discord link fresh in the chat. And moderators can also reach out and grab links too. That should be no problem for them as well to send out invite links to the Discord. But forgive me, guys. I think I must have grabbed an old link. That is my apologies. See, we're not even off to a good start as it is. So let me grab this for you guys real quick. Should be a good 7-day link. Donnie just put one in there. I'm going to add one myself personally. just to be sure we have plenty going around. And thank you very much, Donnie. And obviously, you join the Discord. Again, the channel, you'll find it. And if you need help with anything, just tag at MOD at mod. Someone will come along. They'll help you figure it out. And again, appreciation to the moderation team. They do a lot more than what they what they definitely don't get paid for. So thank them if they do come out and help you out. Moving over to the actual kind of big elephant in the room. I wanted to address the jar opener split rather just shortly. And that would just be to say that the jar openers enterprise, venture, podcast, whatever you wanted to call it, it's no longer happening. There are some disagreements. We have parted ways, and that is that. So if you are interested in following Worrell and where he's at with his journey, you can do that with America First TV. Now, if you want to follow me, that'll be here at Atlas Thugged. Nothing will change there. So moving on to there, again, calls to action. Make sure you smash the like button. If you don't, get out. We don't want you. Just kidding. We're kind of. And obviously subscribe if you haven't already. But moving forward, we're going to start getting into things. Now, a couple major things. Obviously, we kind of piggybacking off of the last stream where I got copyrighted ID'd. So the stream kind of ended rather shortly, so I didn't get to cover as many things as I would have liked to. Now, with that, we kind of left off on the letter from hell. We kind of moved into the Daryl Cooper and Tucker Carlson interview, which I do think if you still have not watched that, definitely go and watch that interview. It's very good and very enlightening too for the historian that he is. But we have a few different angles, right? We have the letter turning into, I believe his name is Durbin, one of these Democrat senators, as well as the Senate Judiciary Committee having a few different pieces that also speak to this letter. Now, I think the letter on its surface, obviously from the Wall Street Journal being the ones that were the ones that were reporting it, I think most people on the surface go, no, I think, I think it's fake. And I think for most people, it's probably the most logical position to hold, although I don't think that it holds up to scrutiny, at least for right now. But moving along, the next big thing that we ended up having was a few people kind of came out speaking against Trump. Now, Dick Durbin, thank you, Chuck. The woman who came out was Maria Farmer. Now, Maria Farmer detailed that in 1996, as well as in 2006, that she had actually been told to contact the FBI. So I believe in 1996 is when she established connection with the FBI, but she had told explicitly that there were encounters with Trump in Epstein's office. So again, her name is Maria Farmer, and she is one of the first, Epstein victims to come on and come in. And this is just kind of getting from, I think Nick said it's not even bad optics. This is like, treasonous almost, if we're believing the definition that this is a cover-up of the largest kind of pedophilic cabal, kind of satanic ring, I guess, if you will. So overall, there's just more pieces of the pie are being added onto this. Now, I'm not going to say I'm going to believe Maria Farmer at her word, but to see that she's willing to put her voice behind the fact that she did come to the FBI both in 1996 and 2006 and explicitly had named Trump being in the office. Now, there's a few other quotes. I believe she had said something along to the effect of, I have it here, right here. She said something along the effect of that he stared at her legs, and then as he had left, as Trump had left, Epstein said to him, "No, she's not here for you." And then she also added a third portion of that, saying later on she did hear Trump say that he thought she was 16. So I wouldn't pay too much attention to that, but she was interviewed twice, and then both times she did say that she explicitly named him. And then something to keep in mind there too, from what I saw from the New York Times, is that the majority of actually Maria Farmer's case is still heavily redacted. It has still largely not been unsealed. So I wonder if his name is still inside of these unsealed documents. So that's another piece to keep in mind there. And Ryan Dawson actually went out, full length, and shout out to our resident house AI for doing this too. Ryan Dawson, I believe it's like briandawson.org. He went ahead and compiled a little short list of a lot of these kind of Epstein documents, highlighting all of these lawsuits that have occurred, in total, right? And I believe the total somewhere, it's close to $1 billion. It's like 807 million in terms of overall kind of documentation or settlement monetary value. And he's kind of bringing this up to point to the fact that all these people were saying the list isn't real. There's not enough evidence here. And it's like, to understand it in that perspective is to omit and close your eyes at the well-documented history of the last 10 years as it pertains to the Epstein case. And so I think that's something else to add in there as well. Now, one other piece, though, to this is there's this kind of Howard Lutnick angle. Now, I think the reason why this Howard Lutnick angle was coming into play was just how often he's being seen in a lot of these photos with Donald Trump, but also a lot of his connections. Now, if you're not familiar, Howard Lutnick is the Secretary of Commerce to Donald Trump. So he is in the cabinet for the Trump administration. So here's some things that maybe you don't know about Howard Lutnick. So let's just go through them one at a time. Well, he is Jewish, and he's a Jewish billionaire. But beyond that, in 1996, Leslie Wexner had gifted $13 million townhouse to Jeffrey Epstein. In 1998, Howard Lutnick had purchased the townhouse that was connected to Jeffrey Epstein, so 2 years later. Both Epstein and Lutnick are very pro-Israel, and they're pro-Israel donors. And again, most people can obviously kind of assume at this point who was Jeffrey Epstein working for. So they were neighbors for 21 years, all the way through, actually, Epstein's, untimely demise, if you will. But beyond that, Howard Lutnick also worked at the World Trade Center. And it just so happened that he was also late to work that day. He had a Larry Silverstein kind of excuse. He held fundraisers for the Clintons as late as in 2015 and 2016. He donated to the Clinton campaign. He hosted the Clinton fundraisers at his own townhouse in 15 and 16. And then later on, he blamed his wife for the donations. He's like, oh, I didn't actually donate. It was my wife who donated. And so I guess my kind of overall thoughts looking at this and then realizing, like, why was all of this entirely omitted? Or people posting in the comments? I'm sorry, forgive me. I'll wrap up my point here. But I guess the main point I was going to bring to with this was, at a certain point, you have to ask, how could there possibly be so many people in Trump's cabinet and all these top brass pundits who have some kind of association or relationship with Epstein? It's getting to the point where you got to think like I'm about to go look at my residential history and be like, did I live next to Epstein for like some time? Like, man, everyone on this planet must have some relation to Epstein. And then you go, oh, actually, no. This is because the administration is all wrapped in together with it themselves. So we do have some colors in here. I got 3 in a row. I want to actually make sure that nobody wants to disconnect, or we're not too short on time. So it looks like, make sure I get the Discord pulled up here too, so I'm looking at the right things. And I do appreciate you guys being a part of this. Thank you very much. Okay, it looks like the first person we're bringing in is going to be Garrett. And Garrett is going to be talking about, is it immoral to want to be around white people only? And I guess I should have led with this too. The featured story we're going to be talking about today is going to stem from the rant that we had from Nicholas J. Fuentes, and I thought it was pretty spot on. So let's go ahead and let's welcome in, I believe it's Garrett. Is that the correct name? Yes, Garrett. And again, he's asking, is it immoral to want to be around white people only? All right, Garrett. Welcome in, brother.
What's going on, man? Can you hear me all right?
Yes, I can.
Cool. Well, thanks for having me.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And so I'm assuming that was kind of your basis of your question, right? Is it immoral to want to be around white people only?
Right. Yeah. It's kind of related to just a lot of what Fuentes talks about as well. And I just something that was relevant to me that I stumbled upon recently. Have you heard of the fellow there who's looking to start the white only community in Arkansas?
Not in Arkansas. I'm familiar with projects that are in Idaho, with like the Greater Idaho Project, as well as I don't know if you're familiar with the Backlash crew, but that would be like Vincent James, Dave Riley, Rebecca. I always forget her last name. There's a bunch of very pro-white people in Idaho, but I'm unfamiliar with Arkansas.
Okay, yeah, I wasn't familiar with Idaho either, but I came across him on X. His name's like Eric Orwell, and he, of course, is receiving a ton of backlash for wanting, his whole thing is no blacks, no Jews, whites only. And my whole thing is, I just can't imagine a black only community receiving that kind of backlash. It's just, so deeply ingrained that it's not okay to be white, and it's not okay to want to be around white people and to raise your kids around white people. Just want to see your thoughts on that.
Yeah, So not my next documentary, but down the line was actually going to be called Freedom of Association, or it will be called Freedom of Association. And the reason why I'm titling that is because I do believe with the civil rights era, we did as a country lose our ability to freely associate. And so on those ends, right, if I have a freedom to associate, that would mean I would also have the freedom to not associate. And we don't have that, right? When it comes to hiring, when it comes to, housing, right? A lot of in like HOAs, they have laws against the discrimination. You have to accept applications from all kinds of backgrounds, right? You can't obviously discriminate on color. But it's a question of moral. Is it wrong to want that? And then I guess there's probably two ways you could go about it, right? Is it immoral in the sense of, does it contradict Christian values? And I would argue no. I think that when you look at the Tower of Babel, and obviously the lesson from there was that there is good in protecting culture. And I think you can kind of go back to some of these older church fathers, right? Especially like in the Catholic Church lineage with some of their fathers, where you can see time and time again where they have strong quotes where the Catholic Church position is that if a nation does want to protect its traditions, its peoples, its ethnos, that it is inside their best interest to do so. And so that's kind of my take on it. And good for them, and it's obviously it's hard to collectivize without being called a Fed. And
Right.
it just sucks because this is partly what I'm trying to do, but obviously, you kind of get called a Fed or any kind of organization, right? Look at Patriot Front, even when they try to do anything.
They're feds. Yeah. That's what
Exactly.
I mean.
Right.
It makes sense. And, I kind of, maybe a little thing you might want to talk about here is with the rise of, all this short form content, it's like people are awakening to the JQ, if you want to call it,
Right.
they're awakening to things like that. Do you think, like, my mind goes to, oh, wow, everyone's learning about it. Everyone's waking up. So maybe it's not the Jews. You know what
Right.
I mean? Something like, what do you think about
Right.
that?
That's one thing, right, where I've kind of pondered it myself too. I mean, I think about my own YouTube channel in that sense, right? Which is, you would think if I posted a Quintes video, I'm gonna like, okay, I'm nuked, right? How long until I'm banned, right? And it just like hasn't happened yet. And I think the same thing can kind of be noticed on X as well. I do think there's probably a level where it would become like if you do have maybe 30, 40, 50% of the population now who is maybe not, entirely like anti JQ, right? But they're aware of like what the ideas are inside of that. I think then you would have to be so overt in your censorship apparatus that most people would see it for what it is. And
True.
so I think they're kind of in this position where they can't censor. So they have to play this influence game. They have to play the smear campaign game. And I mean, and how many accounts have you seen on X in the last like 8 months that you've never seen before with 100,000 followers, Israel flag, Ukraine flag, and they're all, tagging Jake Shields and Fuentes. And so I think they've kind of lost the broader game at large, at least right now.
I agree. Well, thanks for taking my call, man. I appreciate it. I'll let you get to the next guy.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. Thanks for coming on, brother. You
Thanks,
take
man.
care and have
Bye.
a good day. All righty. And so I think the next person that I'm going to have on, and again, shout out to Garrett. Thank you for coming on, brother. I appreciate that. Let me go ahead and see who our next caller is. Oh, it's actually going to be Ivan. Okay. Ivan's going to be inquiring about race as well. Okay. And then after Ivan, we do have another caller loaded up. So, Ivan, let me get you ready here. So, Ivan is inquiring about race. So, let's get it from Ivan. Welcome in, Ivan. What was your question, brother?
Hey, what's up, man?
What's going on?
Well, first on, I wanted to thank you. I don't know if you notice how much of an impact you're having on just new viewers. I just started listening to you like about a couple weeks ago, and there was something that you said in one of the live streams that, by God's providence, I heard at the right time, and it really helped me, man up, I guess,
Okay.
for lack of a better term, So
Well, I
thank you for
appreciate
that,
that. Thank you.
and I praise God for that. But
Yes.
I'm new to this whole thing, like this whole America First thing, and what I really wanted to ask, it kind of pertaining to the last question you just answered, or the last thing you just said, was something about like whites and associating with whites only. Now, you kind of used Christian morality to kind of back that up, but
Right.
I want to kind of know your view on like even when Paul is basically ridiculing Peter, for basically being different to the Gentiles when the Jews came around. and the fact that Paul was a Jew and wanted to associate with the Gentiles because God commanded him so.
Right.
And even if like the willingness that God allows, the willingness for strangers to assimilate essentially, or come and be a part of Israel, even if they're not ethnically Jewish in the Old Testament, they were
Right.
given a process to normalize. And I kind of say that because I believe like that America should be first. I'm a Mexican, or my great grandfathers were Mexicans, and they came here, and then through the acts of like anchor babies, my grandparents, and then my parents, and then now me. So I'm
Yeah.
kind of like a third generation anchor baby, so to speak. So I kind of feel like those kinds of
Okay.
discussions make me question whether or not I
This is
do
the right
have,
place for you.
yeah, like if I am actually an American then, or like a valid American, even though I love this country, I love Christ, I serve this country. Well, not like that, but I mean, I pay taxes, I help out,
Right.
I've done my due diligence with that, and I'm raising my family in American values as well. We don't break the law or anything like that. So that's why I kind of feel like it's, and I know it's not all about feelings, but I kind of
Right.
do feel like it's kind of attacking those who are trying to be,
Right.
so to speak.
Trying to assimilate. No, and I think this is I'm obviously probably gonna open myself up to criticism here. But I actually it's something that I still probably like struggle with when I think about overall like the broad, down to like, brass tacks, right? How it looks specifically. And so, for me, when I look at somebody like Myron Gaines, right? Like Myron Gaines come to my cookout, you know what I mean? Like it doesn't bother me at all. Now he's not in terms of alignment on Christian values, but he is aligned to so much as like he has assimilated in terms of like, the English language, right? He is quote unquote, like he speaks and sounds just like pretty much anyone else I could probably bring up in here. Now, in terms of the association and gatekeeping and just on race, like, no, I do think largely it is in the best interest of America to continue to pursue the kind of like the white majority, right? Which is kind of like the credos of what America is, but to act as if we shouldn't try to assimilate those who are already here. And somebody might, argue what it actually is an American, right? Like if you're third generation, maybe you're American, but or third generation isn't, but fourth possibly could be. But at the end of the day, we as Christians, we're not called to hate anybody. And so that's really like when you really think about it, you kind of use that as the lever, which is like, is what I'm trying to do, does this contradict the most basic of basic Christian values or any Christian value? And then from there is when you kind of go to the specifics. So no, I don't think we should be. And actually, I think this is what Nick Fuentes does well, which is he does kind of loop in a lot more of other individuals, right? He gets made fun of it for it, right? They call him the gay Mexican, right? They call him the Fed boy, the cat boy gay Mexican. Like they make fun of him because he does invite Browns into his space. Now, the issue though would become, where do you draw the line on things like that, right? Generational gaps. But ultimately, I do think we should, especially when it comes to evangelization, right? Like with Christianity, like we should push that. Like that doesn't have any bearing on race whatsoever. But when it comes to like the pragmatic kind of application of what the structure of the country should be, that becomes a whole different question versus who and how should we evangelize to other people. But I do get it though. I'm sure like you probably hear a lot of pro-white takes from me, and that probably makes you feel like you're maybe not welcome in this. And that's not like they're mutually exclusive. It's more so like we have a current kind of apparatus where every other group is okay to be happy with who they are, proud to be who they are. But it's whites and white men in particular that are specifically like put in this box that says, oh, you can't have white pride, right? When you look at like the Grok answers, you can be proud to be Asian, you can be proud to be black, but you can't be proud to be white. And so I think that's where like you're seeing these kind of more general approaches, which is really more shorthand for just righting and correcting those wrongs. Kind of like the same way that Nick Fuentes says racist, right? It's shorthand for being pro-white. And obviously there's a lot more nuance to that. I guess if that answers your question.
Yeah, I mean, I guess, and I agree that there is some agreement there, but I do think that when I don't think it's okay to be prideful in your ethnicity. Like, I don't even think, you should be proud to be like Mexican or black or gay or anything like that. Like pride is a sin. I believe that let him who boasts boast in this, that he knows the Lord Jesus, you know, that he knows the one and only true God. And when you start to like place race or citizenship above Christianity, then, you know, I feel like it gets on murky waters where you start adding, you know, second class citizens. And then either or, like you get the Hebrew Israelites who want to say this and that. You get the Jews who say Christians should worship Jews. You know, you get all this, you know, mess. And I get it, like whites, you know, because the, you know, the founders are white, you know, then I'll,
Right.
you know, there's that backup. But in white culture, insofar as it aligns with Christianity, is good. When it comes to like getting, you know, when it detours or derails, I don't believe that it's a fundamentally, you know, Christian thing or an American thing. I like to, you know, see that the America is fundamentally Christian, you know, and though it was, you know, majority white, I do believe whites can get away from Christianity. You know, I've met many that are, you know, anti-Christ, and, you know, I know many that are for Christ, you know?
Yeah, I mean, the pagan movement is a trip for sure. I generally just don't pay them any attention. I mean, and the reality is this though. I mean, even if we were to separate Christianity from this, right? We look at it just in a pragmatic sense. You know, I am a race realist, right? Like I do view and know to be true that there are predispositions among the races, right? You can see this in a number of ways, right? From like IQ to just behavioral patterns to all of these things. And so I don't think that, you know, you can ignore those things, especially when it pertains to the makeup of the demographics of your country. And I think largely on the sense that because it's not homogenous, but this is a debate even inside circles where with us, which is, you know, does it need to be explicitly all the way down to race, or can you pull it back, and can Christianity be enough of the homogenizing, you know, force? As long as everyone in the nation is Christian, is that enough homogeneity? I think that's the right way to say it. For a nation to be coherent and not have all these kind of, you know, not this balkanization and all these kind of like broken up factions everywhere. Now that's a debate that's happening right now, and I actually still don't even know where I kind of stand on that. But I do think the goal, obviously, and the reason why we see so much of what we're seeing, and you see so much kind of radical kind of solutions, is it's all a reaction to the fact that the multiculturalism experiment is broken, especially done without parameters and done where it's right now, there is no assimilation. You know, the majority of these people coming into the country, and that would be the question too. What would they be assimilated to, right? Like, what even is the American way anymore? You know, people argue about what it is to even be an American now. But what is American tradition? Like, are we a Christian country? You have people on both sides of that argument. And so I think we would have to first answer the question of, one, what is America? Two, what is an American? And three, what is an American in America? You know, all those things, I think people have, it's kind of like asking a liberal, what's a woman? You're going to get 100 answers and none of it's going to make sense.
Yeah, I mean, I see your point. The founding of the nation, you know, like you look at the, you know, Christopher Columbus is very obviously wanted to come and start a new nation where Christ was the foundation. And I think as soon as you start to add anything outside of Christianity as America, like there's where, you know, mess starts to happen. You know, I do believe that it does mean, you know, I don't think that being an American, I don't think you can be an American truly and not submit to Christ. I mean, if you want to reject the Lord, but you want to obey his rules in an outward sense, like worship him with mouth and you know, with outwardly, you know, that I think is still necessary. You shall not murder, you shall not, you know, steal, all these things. You should at least pragmatically submit to the Lord Jesus. But if, you know, I think in the truest sense, an American is one who submits fully, you know, inward and outwardly. However, you know, the general public must still obey that which is godly and Christ-like. I think that's what establishes like a homogeneous nation where everyone, you know, now is receiving blessing. You know, even if it's not inwardly, they will receive outward blessing in the vicinity of those who are inwardly, you know, of God.
Yeah. Well, and here's what I would say to that. You know, this will be the last thing I say. I want to move on to the next caller.
Yeah,
I do appreciate your time. Thank you. What I would say to that would be, I think when you look at it, if you were looking at it like a game plan, right? We're looking at it like strategically. I think that the race question is down the line. I think the first objective needs to be what you laid out there. We need to win the Christian nationalist front inside the Republican and the conservative wing first before we can move to anything beyond that. Because if we can even get the conservative base to move to the Christian nationalist position, the race position's out of the question. So I think practically the first steps would be where we're at with like Joel Webbin, right, and many other Christian nationalists, which is to push for bringing back the embellishment and the actual kind of placeholder of what American values are, instead of being kind of like this botched list that we all kind of agree on this, is no, it's the Bible. Here's the 10 Commandments. Here's the New Testament. Here's the covenant. That's what we believe here in this country. And so I think practically we settle that first, then we can move on to settling, you know, maybe some more nuanced and minor, you know, disagreements on race and how that can look, you know, in a Christian nation at that point. Because we're not a Christian nation right now. I mean, let's just be honest, right? It's like this is where we're kind of owned by Hollywood, you know, a lot of Jewish power, you know, everything's broken up. And so that's the first fight I would say we got to move to. But thank you again, Ivan. I do appreciate your time. I'm going to go ahead and move on to the next caller.
Thank you, man. God bless you.
Yes, thank you. You too, brother. To give a shout out to Ivan for coming on. Thank you very much, brother. I do appreciate that. I'm going to see who the next person is that I have in here. Looks like we have Orthodox, or also goes by Maverick. Says he wants to hear about my Christian journey. Okay, so it'll be a little bit different than where we were at. Okay, so we're bringing on Maverick. All right, Maverick, what's going on, brother?
Yeah, Alice, am I coming through all right?
Yep, you sound good to me.
Yeah, I would like to push back a little bit on Ivan earlier before we move on to my initial question.
Okay.
If he's saying all it is to be an American is to be a Christian, I mean, I just flat out reject that. I mean, we were started as a white Christian nation. I think if we change what an American is fundamentally to our race, it's just we're going to go back to where we are now. And it's proven that even if you get people who are Christian from other countries, they're not going to exactly blend well with the West. I mean, it's still a racial issue. People don't want to hear it, but it is inherently racial. So if that's what he was saying, I would disagree on that, but I'm not trying to like start a feud or anything with viewers.
No, you're good. Say your piece. That's what it's here for.
Anyways, but yeah.
But I do agree with you largely. I do agree that I think there is, especially as it pertains to race. Now, like I told Ivan, I'm still kind of on the fence on that question, but ultimately the goal, regardless, is, you know, race can be secondary to that. It's like, if we can't even get the nation to be Christian nationalists, even under a multiracial lens, it's like we're not even going to be able to get a chance to move to the racial aspect of it. So that's kind of my process.
Yeah, we are in a sticky situation when it comes to that, because not only do we have like the issue that we're vastly, very, very closely not going to become a white majority country anymore, which is frightening of itself, but we have all these other religions popping up. Like we have neo-paganism making a huge, or new age, neo-paganism, all this other crap, Islam.
Yeah.
That's been brewing here for a very long time, which Father, soon to be Saint Seraphim Rose of the Orthodox Church predicted back in the 70s. He saw Hinduism and Eastern religions rising up in America like 50, 60 years ago. So it's come home to roost. But anyways, I don't want to take up too much of your time, but I would like to hear generally like your Christian journey. We were talking a little bit on the Discord earlier. Like, I forgot all the steps, but could you explain like where your mindset is and why you're attracted to the East, to Orthodoxy?
Yeah. So, yeah, man, I guess not to take too much time from people for this, but, you know, I grew up, you know, they call what's the term Cradle Catholic. I don't know if there's a term for Cradle Baptist, if you will.
Oh, yeah.
That was me, you know, ever since I was, you know, was conscious. I was in a, you know, I think it's considered the Church of God, which I believe is a Baptist wing, although I wasn't there for too long. Ended up going to a Methodist church. And from the Methodist there, that was another like short stint for a couple of years. Ultimately settled with the Church of the Nazarene, basically from when I was 14 through high school.
Interesting.
By the time I got to my senior year, I was a Christian in name only, right? A Chino. I showed up to church, but the moment I left, you know, cussing, I was drinking, I was, you know, fornicating, or, I was doing all the things that obviously like doesn't, honor or show a Christian walk in the faith. And then so from there, I go to college. Obviously, those gets from bad to worse. I ultimately become addicted to a few different substances, and that's kind of what really kind of broke it out for me. I had an extremely bad moment on New Year's Eve. I believe it would have been in 2017. Just by the grace of God, He saved me. I woke up while I was operating a vehicle under the influence. Vehicle was going about 25 miles down a one-way street. I came to. As soon as I did, I slammed the brakes. I stand up. As soon as I get out of the car, you just hear like this big plop. And what the plop was I'd actually thrown up all over myself. I wasn't aware of it. So when I get out of the car, it's all on the ground. And I just like in that moment, I was thinking like, how am I still alive? And if anyone's, even been in like a metro area or Columbus or any kind of city, how tight those kind of one-way, roads can be with cars on both sides. It's a miracle. I have no idea how my car was untouched. And then from there, I kind of really began thinking about my life choices. But ultimately, that kind of culminated in the job I had after college. There's a guy who I worked alongside who made me really reconsider how I was and what my life was. Basically, like, this guy was go, go, go. He was, I love Jesus, so should you. And I kind of realized, like, this guy's kind of like the light of the workplace, and I'm like the darkness of the workplace, right? It's like people don't enjoy working with me. I don't talk much. I'm not probably unpleasant to be around. And that ultimately led me back into being in the faith. And then as I paid attention to politics and got more involved with just what was going on around me, trying to understand the world, to me, it became evidently clear there is a truth, there is a God, and his name is Jesus Christ. And I think from the political lens, that's when I kind of began listening to people like Jay Dyer and Andrew Wilson. And they kind of basically ripped me out of my my Protestant stance and have pushed me towards Eastern Orthodoxy. And that would be on, I think, one large aspect, and that would be the kind of problem in Protestantism. And I kind of say this often: you can judge Protestantism by its fruits, and its fruits is female pastors, non-denominational church plants all over, and they all love the gays. And like, that's what the fruit of Protestantism is. And people don't like to, recognize that. But when you compare it to Eastern Orthodoxy and even Catholicism to a lesser degree, those seemingly were a lot more shielded from the influences from the outside world. And I chalk that up to the fact that the church, as it's written in Timothy, is the pillar of truth. And because they had the church and a strong tie to a church and a hierarchy and the infrastructure, they were much more better prepared to like not be subverted by all of like the, the Western and secular and feministic kind of ideologies. And that's where I got to today.
Wow, awesome to hear, brother. I didn't go through the same journey, of course. I was just talking to my priest today. I just went, I'm not trying to boast. Oh, I'm still good. I went to confession. I just tell the truth. I went to confession today, and actually, a little bit afterwards, I was discussing with my priest. He's like, "Oh yeah, I'm pro-immigration." I'm like, but he's 80 years old. I'm like, "Oh no." I'm like, "Yeah, I'm totally against it, Father." And he's like, "Oh, interesting." Anyways, I was telling him, it was like the way I came to Orthodoxy was I literally just looked at at the history of the church and Saint Ignatius's writings. Just from what I've heard, I need to get them in print. But I mean, he's literally like a disciple of Saint John the Apostle, and what he said, how the church is structured, how it's governed, how the Eucharist is literally the body and blood of the body and blood of Jesus Christ. Now, Mary was the eternal virgin. So that just convinced me. And I've been running this journey now for over 2 years now. I was chrismated this December 2 years ago. So it's been a wild ride, dude. It feels short and long at the same time. But as we discussed in Discord, I'm not going to dox you, of course, but go to that cathedral, dude. You got to go to that place. That's going to be an awesome thing for you to go to. But
I have it saved, and I do appreciate you looking that up and sending me those photos too. And I guess, I kind of, when I think about it as well, I think one of the takes, and I cannot remember who said this, and I wish I did, because it's a great quote.
Okay.
He said, and he was Orthodox, but when he was like, when I look at the Protestants, to me, and this is his quote, to me, they look like they worship Scripture. He's like, we as Orthodox, we worship God. And it was like that was kind of like kind of like a nuanced take there, but you will see this, right? This kind of like I don't know if you would say idolatry, but I think an over and unnecessary kind of reliance on scripture and like refusing to go to everything else, right? It's the sole authority. Who cares about the 300 years the Bible didn't exist, right? And like it begins to become a little bit incoherent, like at least to me, like trying to put that together. And I think largely those inconsistencies has kind of been what's pushed me over the edge.
Yeah.
But thank you. Was there anything else you wanted to
just quick addendum on what you just said earlier, just a second ago. Yeah, we didn't have the canon of scripture for 300 years, but most of Christendom or most of Christianity, people couldn't read until like 200 years ago. And getting a Bible during most of Christianity was extremely expensive, and they had to handwrite all of them. So most of Christians throughout all of human history have not read the Bible or a very limited scope of it.
Right.
So that's why I rely upon the church and the teachings of the church. But anyways, thank you, Atlas. God bless you, brother.
Yeah. No, thank you very much. I appreciate you coming on. You
Yes,
take
sir.
care and have a good rest of your day, man.
Yeah, you too, man.
And everybody shout out to Maverick. He's been pretty consistent there on the Discord. And one thing I would add too, a lot of what's missing from a lot of and I'll just kind of make this a short note for moving to the featured story. A lot of pastors do a poor job of providing strong historical context, especially as it would apply and help you understand the verse as it was written in that time frame. And for example, one of those things, Joel Evan kind of enlightened me to this, was the idea here that, the majority of this is like oral tradition. This is individuals kind of hearing it and then retelling it. So this is why the phrase is so commonly seen in the Bible, exhibited in the Bible, truly I tell you. And who's generally saying this? Well, it's Jesus Christ. He's saying, truly I tell you. And you wouldn't put that together unless you kind of knew like, oh, this is because like it's oral tradition. But even more so than that, the rabbis at the time, they would generally say truly, and they would name another rabbi. Rabbi tells you, or rabbi says, because it was so much kind of the nebulous kind of network there between the rabbis. They would say, he tells you, or this rabbi said. And that's part of the reason why they were obviously so angry at Jesus, because he's not roping in any of the rabbis. He says, no, I tell you, I'm telling you, I'm the authority. And that's one bit of, piece of context that kind of obviously can highlight a bit more of the tension that exists between the two. But thank you very much. And the calls are still going to be active. So obviously flag me if I'm not seeing it. I'm a one-man army, so I'm trying to operate a few things here. But if you do want to call in, you definitely still can. Mod should still have that set up as well. And it'll be all the way until I finish the show around 8. But let's get into the white self-hatred. So this is part of the reason why I did pick George to be on the thumbnail, because I do agree with a lot of George's ideas. And sometimes you'll catch me on the Internet Archive listening to some of his former speeches. He was a great orator. Where I really wanted to take this was off of the rant we got from Nick Fuentes. So I think that's where we should probably start. I'll go ahead and grab that actually and make sure, because I do have it here. There's a part I have to censor because YouTube's not going to like it. And so I apologize in advance for doing that, but I do have to mute it around the 2-minute and 13-second mark. But we can listen to the rest. And so make sure I can grab this actually and be on the right page. But once I get that on screen, his rant basically was in the form of, why do white men hate themselves? Now, he got this inspiration from, I believe it was, what's his name? Shane Gillis, the comedian, who had some great jokes, to be honest. The WNBA one I did think was good. But it's more so, who is Shane Gillis's audience? Who finds that kind of chud humor funny? And why is it wrong? And what should it be addended to? So I'm going to go ahead and grab this. Make sure I can grab the right screen here. All right, there we go. And, forgive me. Forgive me, guys. This is why I don't use StreamYard, because it just kind of sucks to use, to be honest with you. And this is my last time using StreamYard, by the way. I'll be moving over to OBS after this permanently, because I'm also going to be adding in a few other things as well, because I want to make it very prolific for you guys. Okay, anyways, here it is. Okay, now it's on screen. Now this is a quote tweet from Alex Jones, but Alex Jones did quote it, and it's basically a revamped version of his rant he had back in, I believe it would have even been early 2000s, might even been a little bit before then, but everyone might remember the Alex Jones rant, basically, dogging a lot of guys who could they could tell you sports stats from the Chicago Bears from like the 1980s, but when you ask them like, well, hey, well, what did the president just put forward as policy yesterday? They're like, I have no idea. And so Alex Jones kind of highlighting that the average man's attention is not in the right place. Let me get that off screen for now when I do play this video, but I'm going to go ahead and let it rip. And like I said, I have to mute it at the 2 minute and 13 second mark. Nobody let me forget, but here it is.
There's like the real rebellion is not to be a fucking fat slob. It's not to be a wigger. The real rebellion is to be like a white polymath. It's like Ted Kaczynski. Ted Kaczynski is like the hero, not because he's a terrorist, but because this was like such an unbelievable genius that the entire FBI couldn't stop him. A one-man army, that's who we are. An unbelievable polymath, a mathematician, a philosopher, skilled at evading law enforcement and all that. And I'm not encouraging terrorism, but it's like, that's who we are. Ted Kaczynski, Killdozer, Hitler, like that is what we are capable of. That is what is in our DNA. Christopher Columbus, Joseph Stalin, this is what is in our DNA. We are dangerous. We are fearsome. We are a martial race. We conquered the world. We are bold. And so we should try to get a little bit of a sense of identity. A white man gets pissed off and he starts bombing people across the country, and all the king's men cannot stop him. A white man gets pissed off, he builds a tank and destroys the entire town. A white man gets pissed off and he declares war on the world and almost wins.
It's funny because there was a popular tweet that went viral, and it was saying, can white people chimp out? And somebody quoted it with a photo of Adolf Hitler. But it seems like this is a lost art, right? The ability for the white man to possess that kind of level, threat level, if you will, right? And actually be a feared kind of social influence. And that's obviously missing, but this is kind of the lead up into where he's going to take it to what he kind of sees with men. And I'll be a bit vulnerable too after the fact, and we'll get into what it is and what it means to be a wigger. But here's the rest of it.
And it's like, that's who we are. And white men want to be some beer drinking slob with an ironic mullet and a jersey emulating their favorite doofus comedian acting like Homer Simpson. Or they want to sound like a wigger. And I hate it. So it is that deep, you fucking loser. Hey, for every white person it's not that deep, bro. Fuck you, pussy.
Okay.
You're wearing a sports jersey for some juiced up, roided up mandingo who's beating the shit out of his girlfriend while you drink beer and watch it and say, fuck you. That goes for all sports watchers, all sports gamblers, sports bettors, beer drinkers, wiggers. Fuck you. Hitler would have hated you.
So that's the idea, right? And that's kind of like where I'm coming across. Now, obviously not, less so obviously the end, what he had ended there with, but more so the idea that white men hate their identity. And this is kind of the social engineering experiment that's been going on for God knows how long. I was born into it. It's been happening for a long time. But the idea there is true. It is white men typically have two paths they go into. They either adopt a bunch of Ebonics and become a wigger like I did, not now, but when I was younger, or two, they get molded, right? They get molded by everything that's telling them they do need to be pushovers. They do need to be these stick twinks. They need to be these, you need to be gay. It's like and you see it, right? It's obviously the social contagion. Like so many of these guys will move to these very just sad positions and ultimately become very effeminate versions of themselves. But the main bracket that they fall into is what he's speaking to there, which is the Shane Gillis beer drinking, ironic, wearing like, you know, old symbols of old masculinity, which he was getting ready to go into, right? Which is like having a mullet or like the stashes, right? It's all kind of like in jest, where it's like the joke is that like it's almost like the joke is white men aren't masculine, white men aren't cool, white men aren't based, white men, it's like the joke is that white men just suck and they're weak and they're pathetic. And it's like, how have we gotten to the point that you can make whole audiences and careers off the fact that white men will slap themselves and say, you know what, I am a fat chubby waste of space. I got that right. Like, and so, you know, this is something obviously that even myself had tangled with, you know, at a time, obviously growing up, and especially for things like, you know, with like sexual persuasion and all the other ways that masculinity as a tool is utilized and is meant to be a part of who you are as your identity. And so I fell into this trap personally, and I guess I'll start with me. Let me hammer myself out before I move to everybody else. Pause. I fell into that trap personally, you know, and not the white man trap, but the wigger trap, you know, and subconsciously, because I did, you know, I desired to be under some banner of masculinity, and for whatever reason, right, like whether it was the social engineering or it was the social pressures of the people I was nearby, there was something about being proud of, you know, being a white man who's capable, a capable engineer or an arithmetic or an architect, was like, man, like, you know, who wants to be that, right? Like that was somehow ingrained in me as a kid, right? Like who wants to be like this smart engineer who can solve these civil engineering problems, right? Like, wow, that's lame. And it's like, why was that, right? like why was that? And then beyond that, you have, and this is, you have the Ebonics, right? Which is kind of like the speech, the language that's there too. And I fell into that as well, right? Which is trying to, sound black. Not that the idea is to sound like, I do not sound black. God made me just to sound black, right? I can barely even talk without people thinking I'm AI or I'm black. But I did this, and many other men do this, and they still do this because that is them trying to attach themselves like to something that's masculine, right? And now they'll even use like the language. They will, they'll wear the bandanas. And I wear bandanas sometimes, but I'm not going to wear a Tupac style or anything like that. It's just basic. And it's sad because ultimately white men are in this position where they are actively trying to escape who they are to feel secure about what they want to be or how they appear to others, how others will perceive them. And so it gets ingrained in them that, a white stand-up man is like, well, that's the last thing you want to be. And that's really the crux of the problem. And that's the foundation to the problem. And so, it can go a couple of different ways, right? And some men just kind of internalize it. They just become these kind of chuds. You know how many Instagram videos I see or shorts of like some dude who's pushing like 190 pounds and ain't 10 of it even muscle. He's got like some weird, big old mullet. His face hasn't been shaved in a few days. His guts hanging out the bottom of his t-shirt, and he's cracking a cold one. He's cracking a cold one. I'll drink beer. And I know I said this in the Discord, and I won't go too into it as well here. But you have this crowd. You have a crowd that like they enjoy it. You make a small dick joke about these guys. They're like, you got that right, buddy. It is. It's about 1 inch. I can barely. It's like, why do you hate yourself? You are pathetic. You are pathetic. Now, I always hated that when I was growing up, but I didn't really make much mention of it, nor did I really have a way of navigating it because I didn't understand it. And if you push back on it, that's the easy end, which is like, oh, this guy must really have a small one. How about we don't saddle up on the idea that at large our society makes fun of our entire race for being unable to please women? Like, what do you think that would do consequentially to the generations of children after you? Right? And this kind of goes back to the majority of my anger that I do have is with men who are older than me. Right? Because like I just think all the time, like I look at the world around me and I was like, somebody let the guard down first, right? And it wasn't me, right? Like largely our generation, Gen Z, we're like the base generation, right? You have what's that one guy call him? Generation Zyklon. It's hilarious. But I look at some of these older generations and I'm like, so you guys literally just sat around and let our nation get raped. And like, I'm not supposed to be mad at you for that. Like, I'm not supposed to hold you to make you be accountable for these kind of things, right? Like, how many men do you know where you walk around and you're like, yeah, that guy gets absolutely dog walked by his wife on a daily basis. And he puts up with it because he is such a pathetic, such a lack of capital man that he couldn't get any other sexual access anywhere. So his leverage in the sexual marketplace is by being obedient. That's disgusting. Now, that's not all guys, and some guys can end up in some pretty bad situations, right? Like Jeff Younger. And that's not to say every guy who's got a bad woman around them is because he's pathetic, but there are elements at play, and largely a lot of them do lend themselves to that being the case a lot of times. And so, and to move on there, right? Like, you look at who are the role models. Who are white men role models right now? Can chat name me 3? No, don't say Nick Fuentes. That's an easy one. Name 3 that are over the age of 30 that are that are role models, that are white men that would fit into that kind of mold of like a Clint Eastwood or a James Dean. He says Chuck Norris. In the last 10 years, they don't exist. They literally just don't exist. And this has kind of been the theme, which is with Hollywood and media in general, right? Digital media. Dude, whoever said Ben Shapiro, you one more time, you get banned. That is funny. That's a good one. There is none of these role models like out here in this existence, especially like in the last 10, 15 years. And even before that, you did have a lot of people complaining about the buildup of what you're getting with Western media, which is, it's this typical trope, right? It's the dad, and now this is even not just specific on color, but a lot of times it is, where the dad is this fat, just loser. The mom's got to do everything in spite of him because he's like this big burden. He never knows what's going on with his kids. He just grills and golfs with the guys. He's just bumbles and dumbles along, and the kids kind of hate him, but like he's just like this goofable, and you just love him because he's a retard, right? And like this is depicted by Adam Sandler, Will Ferrell. I mean, the majority of all comedians, and then even then some as well. And so you'll get this dynamic too, and I've noticed it on some of the newer shows where now even more so than that, and I think Left Behind was one of the more recent examples of this. They'll have a good role model, they'll have a masculine person in it, but they're never white. So when there is like an alpha male who comes along to save the day, or there is a hero who comes along to save the day, the dynamic is generally reflected by the fact that the guy who let the guard down, or the guy who is needing to be, or the woman's needing to be saved from, is some white bum loser. And so that obviously needs to be corrected for, because again, the imprintation on, white young boys' minds is like, I don't want to be that. I will do anything to escape being that. And it is on all the things, right? It's on perception. It's the way people perceive you. It's on the sexual persuasion in the marketplace. And it's obviously just social status at large, right? Most men want to feel like they are a threat. They want to be perceived as if they are a threat. They want to be perceived as if they are angry. You need to back away, right? And that's most men. And if you don't feel that way, I don't know where I could really take it from there for you. Just you feel wrong. And I don't know if I had actually played that on the clip there, but he makes the point too, which is, go wear another black man's name on the back of your t-shirt while you watch a domestic abuser and cheer for him while your girlfriend watches. I mean, and you think about that dynamic, it's kind of the same way where when you really kind of think about porn, you have to go like, oh yeah, that's just basically digital cucking. And then I think if you were to explain that to men, you know, if you were to get that message out a lot more to men, they would stop doing it. They'd be like, bro, you like being cucked? You're watching porn. It is building the pathways and the chemistry in your brain to make it so you are more attracted. You are more sexually pleased by watching someone else do something to the woman you fancy than you doing it yourself. You know, get that message out there, dude. I bet you get a lot of men who immediately stop. I mean, you know, and it is an addiction. You got to treat it like a, you know, almost like it's a drug, because the way it does affect your brain. But ultimately, like, that's basically what it is. That is what porn is. You're digitally cucking yourself. And now we have guys at large who are like talking about how they're going and gooning. It's sad. It is very sad. But you know, before I go on to the next step there, I wanted to say as well, if anybody wants to call in, it is still available. We'll be doing it the whole show. But I want to get to another thing here too. And so on that note, an application, I think, from there, and people probably in this chat probably saw the Mehdi-san versus the 20 far-right Republicans. And I mean, and you just look at the way these guys look, and I'm not trying to be rude, right? Like, some of these guys were pretty like intelligent, but like, why do they look like, I mean, they look like, you know, what's that SpongeBob episode where they hit the door on Squidward's face? Not that it made him look pretty, but the other time when it made him look ugly. Like, that's how these guys look, right? Like, they look like these very dysgenic, like, not normal, not broad shoulders. They're all chubby, and you know, and I'm not trying to be rude to Pintsat, but it's very like, man, dude, like, we don't we don't have a single good guy who's a good kind of like brand for this kind of movement. And you know, Luigi, who is an Orthodox kind of apologist on X, I wish I had the specific tweet because he kind of nailed it. But Hermes is the kind of guy who's an up and comer. He's a street interviewer. Now, I do think he's largely like race first. I don't know how much he is. You know, I don't want to make any kind of assumptions, but we'll just say Hermes is this kind of up and comer. He does a lot of on street. Man on the street kind of interview content, and largely on the basis of like race. He's a bit edgy. Now, he was also there, but apparently he was cut from the frame and cut from the video, so his appearance with Mehdi is not on the full length production. But Luigi had made a comment that kind of caught me off guard in this kind of vein too, which was, well, it wasn't because that Hermes had called Mehdi, you know, Muhammad, and that was offensive. He thinks that Hermes was left off because Hermes was an actually like well-dressed, like good-looking, charismatic white man. And so it's kind of like when there are the far right, you know, and it's all these little just MAGA guys, it's like, dude, you don't want me on there at all then. But you know, it's a way to kind of gatekeep it and push out to everyone else who's not in our camp or even close to it. They look at that and they go, oh, the only people who believe in this is like a bunch of basement dwelling, you know, fat white guys. Like, oh, okay. Like, oh, they just must all hate women, and they all think like the Beardsons and like the Pine Saps. And that's not to say like they don't have good takes, but it's just to say like they're not. They give ammunition just from their appearance and just from the way they kind of present themselves and the crash outs. Like, and that is to say, largely, and I'll repeat the great words of Nicholas J. Fuentes, we need to be elite human capital. Elite human capital. And that is in all ways, right? Now, he mentions that the polymath, like being capable of multiple things, being dominant in multiple fields, being that kind of one-man army, being the Swiss Army knife of a human being, being so in and of multiple elements, right? Being dominant. That's what we should need to be, right? Not content with laughing at Shane Gillis jokes because we can relate to how fat and lazy we are. But that we see Shane Gillis and we get angry because why is this clown like? And then I think that's the better take too. He's not even a comedian; he's a clown. He's like, make fun of me. I'm making fun of all of us because we all look like these dysgenic idiots. And that's really to kind of put a pin in everything. The idea here, if we are trying to save our country, reclaim our country, push for Christian nationalism. Well, for women, I tell you what, especially for women, The easiest way to do that is to be a guy who can swing them off their feet, like an Andrew Tate, or someone who's in that element, and also be presentable, be elite human capital. The same way that it's also like not good for us to have like these like just obvious kind of easily take out of context kind of moments, right? You got to actually kind of, not that you need to be obedient to the system, but there are ways to be couth versus uncouth. There's ways that you can kind of present yourself and have alliances and be friends with people who aren't entirely aligned with you, that doesn't lend itself to blowing up the entire thing. And that's to speak to the fact that we do need to start collectivizing. And it's hard. It's hard to collectivize in these kind of idea sets and not be, raided by infiltrators, not be called a fed, right? Not have to live in fear of hiding your face. And and I'm in a unique position where because I'm self-employed and I can make money on my own, I don't have to worry about that as much. Whereas I know everyone else in here probably doesn't have that same kind of leverage or ability, where it's you are at risk, right? Like, and I'm getting to the point where you might be able to say like, hey, I watched an Atlas Thug video, and they're going to be like, wow, you listen to that neo-Nazi, you're fired. We need you to come into office right now. And so I understand there is an element to that, but even inside of that, though, there's a way to go about it and collectivize. Ultimately, that will have to require a higher amount of intellect, and not be these low IQ anti-Semites they accuse the majority of us of being, or low IQ racists and whatever would fall under that banner, that term there. And so I think that's kind of where I guess I will leave it with the white self-hatred. I feel like I'm forgetting a significant thing I was meaning to say on that end, but obviously I chose George Rockwell for the thumbnail because I do think that people should say or should listen to some of his older speeches, which you can find that on the Internet Archive. And that was because, and one of his main takes, right, and it's just a more platonic, broader take, was that conservatives and Republicans, they kind of intermingle now, they were always bad at winning any kind of emotional argument. Right. They could never emotionally galvanize people behind them. And you can't do that when your platform is about like my GDP, right? Or my taxes. Whereas the left is like the party of wanting to, save the puppies. We want to end world hunger. It's like those kind of like ideas are so much more easily motivationally and emotionally galvanizing to the person who hears them for the first time than someone who's going, wah, wah, wah. I think that we should lower taxes to 3.4%. And I think that we will also like that's what a lot of conservatives sound like to people, because they don't have a strong, social cohesion. And even in conservatives right now, right? Like, and I predicted this a long time ago, but it was, maybe like 2 years ago, we were going to get the blow up of the conservative movement. And that was because on the social grounds, you have a faction that is pro-Christian, pro-Christ, and Christ first. Then you have another faction that's basically just this tumor that fell off of the left wing because they didn't want to go so far to be progressives. And, the Libertarian Party picked Chase Oliver. So like they kind of burrowed their way into like the right, which is really just a bunch of liberals from 10 years ago. And that's where you have this kind of like this fracturing, this breakup. And it was only going to last until Trump got elected, and ultimately it blows up because everyone's, future goals and what they envisioned for what would actually fix this country and be good for America was ultimately going to be a lot different from each other. But to move on from there, put a pin in that, I guess I'll move on to an actual kind of secondary story. And again, Collins are up. I guess I'll put that banner back up. Everybody knows I'm a Christian supremacist. I guess I don't need that right underneath my name. So what was the other big story that we ended up getting, right? We ended up getting the Obama coup against Trump. And again, Donnie just messaged me if you do want to end up coming back on. I know it looks like you're a bit more active in chat. I don't know if you made it back or not. You want to come on. So we have Obama's, Clinton and Obama's coup. And hard segue alert. We get the news to kind of appease everybody because we're not getting the Epstein files. We get this release in this memo from, the director of national intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard. And she comes out and says, oh, hey guys, look, there was a coup that was orchestrated against Trump. And here's all the evidence for it. Or here's what we found in the evidence. So Tulsi Gabbard gets this memo out. And so there's a few key points in this memo and what this memo assesses. Now, largely, I'm of the mindset that this is a distraction. This is a This is a deflection. This is to give something to the hungry masses who are demanding to be fed, right? We want meat, and they're not going to give us the Epstein big steak, but they will give us, like, a side helping of mashed potatoes, which is, here's the Obama coup. So it assesses a few key points, right? So it basically establishes that, Clinton, Obama, and the National Security Cabinet had essentially manufactured and politicized intelligence to lay the groundwork to have this coup against Trump. And so they say, leading up to 2016, the intelligence community had, continually had assessed that Russia in no way was trying to influence the election via cyber means. And, kind of similar to the whole Iran thing, which is all the lead up is, no, they're not building a nuclear weapon. They have no means to do so. Oh, actually they are right now, immediately. Change of heart. But a meeting took place in December. It was in December 9th of 2016. Obama had actually gathered his top national security cabinet officials together, and they wanted to discuss Russia. But right after that meeting, an email was actually sent to other intelligence community leaders to create a new intelligence community assessment on Russia, on the electioneering, per the president's request. So at the request of Obama. And they wanted that assessment to detail the tools that Moscow used and the actions that it took to influence the 2016 election. So these statements then were intentionally leaked to media outlets afterwards there between December and January of 2016 and 17, amplifying the talking point. So then come January 6th of 2017, a new intelligence community assessment gets released, and it is in direct contradiction to all of the IC assessments that were leading up to that for the previous 6 months. So Tulsi Gabbard gives this the treasonous charge, treasonous conspiracy. Now she says this verbatim in the memo, and it's also on her X account, I believe, too, like also in the in the caption. So that's a pretty heavy charge. And I agree. Let's put Marcus up here, because I agree. I'm curious how many of you guys agree with this as well. This is to get the heat off of the back of the administration that has basically, I mean, and I'll go with Fuentes as well. This is an optics. This is a legacy defining. Trump will not have the legacy that everyone thinks he will have. There will be a major blemish on it. And that will particularly be hinging upon the fact of the way that the Epstein file declassification has happened. Now, I think even on top of this wasn't enough. So that's why earlier today, we got 230,000 pages of MLK declassified documents. They are trying to find what they can give in replacement of the Epstein files. Like, it's getting to this level that they are basically telegraphing that the Epstein files, you're not going to get anything from. Also, we were supposed to get the grand jury testimony unsealed. What happened with that? Now, I did see, I believe they made the motion to do so, but as far as I've understood, I don't think that there's been any kind of unsealing that's happened yet. Now, I could be wrong about that because I've been focused elsewhere. And one thing with that too, he does have 3 years to make it good, right? And maybe, completely come around. But I think there's very little evidence that speaks to the fact that that is what's going to be happening. So from there, though, again, nobody believes this. I do have a quote here from Jeff Younger. Make sure I can put this on stage again. Let me actually, there should be an easy way I can do this, right? Is that going to change for you guys? Yeah, there we go. Look at that. There we go. So here's from Jeff Younger. And this is what he said. So he's quoting Owen Schroyer. Owen Schroyer says, and this is his main tweet here, he said, the only reason that we're talking about Obama and Russian collusion hoax is because no one was arrested in Trump's first term. So is this the new Republican game? Talk about deep state criminals on the campaign, but never arrest them? Then Jeff responds to this saying, yes, that's exactly the strategy of Republicans. And then he goes on to say he needs an auto-like feature for Owen Schroyer. And that's where I'm at with this. I do find this to be ultimately not at all going to be indicative of us getting anything. I do think it is a distraction, and I doubt we get arrest. It looks like we got did Ortho come back on? Does Ortho want to call again? Let's see here. Okay, Ortho, am I bringing Ortho back in? How about you just join me on this topic, brother? You here with me, Ortho?
Yeah, I'm here, man.
Perfect. So what are your thoughts with this, right? What are your thoughts on getting the memo that we're going to start doing the kind of criminal referrals on Obama? I give you my take. I think ultimately that if we don't get arrested very soon, we're going to start having a full-blown riot on our hands. I think there's only so long you can dangle a carrot in front of an animal's face before it gets pissed off. That's what I think.
Yeah, I think they're definitely jangling keys in front of our faces. They're throwing shit at the wall, hoping something will stick. They're trying everything to get the retarded MAGA base back onto the plantation because everyone's so pissed off at Trump right now, and they're just throwing everything out there. And what are they going to do? Write a strongly worded letter to Obama and like haul him out in chains? That's not going to happen. I mean, this is all just distraction. It's just nonsense. Nothing's going to come of this.
Right. And that's why I think they know that, which is why what shortly followed that was the declassification of all the MLK files. And, I think if I was to go to, a secondary point beyond that, one thing that actually House had sent into me too, which I'll get into in a little bit, is even with this, we have Tom Cotton who's advancing legislation to kneecap how much the DNI can actually do. And so, you just kind of, you see how just like how sick, the game is, and all of the kind of different little rules that they will kind of use to their advantage and all these kind of little hiccups. It kind of begins to, for one, make you kind of hate the American kind of system of governance, right? All the little rules they have in there.
Absolutely.
But again, beyond that, you go, there is nothing, right? And it kind of becomes, are they tone deaf, right? Are they just not listening to us? Or is this the level of which they're willing to actually risk the whole base going sour on them? Because there is something in the files they are so desperate to protect against. And so say, even if it's not Donald Trump himself, I'm of the belief that it's got to be everybody in that cabinet, right? From Howard Lutnick to maybe even Susie Wiles, like all of those people probably have deep involvement in that. And you kind of ask yourself too, right? The Vinny Ohana question, is there a cost that is there a certain cost that it gets too high that you go, okay, never mind. We'll forget about all of these people who, abuse children for hundreds of years that run this country.
Yeah, I mean, it's just becoming very clear that they're willing to do anything than reveal the truth because the truth will shatter this country. We know relatively what's happened on that island with Epstein, and it would tear apart the fabric of what is left of America. I mean, you and I, and everyone who's watching the show already know pretty much what happened there. But your average normie, I still don't know how some people can still be asleep at this point. But then again, the average American's pretty stupid, so I'm not shocked. But
Right.
yeah, it's just I think you said this a little bit earlier. It's like how much more faith can we have in America or something like that, in like democracy or whatever. I mean, I know that's out the window. That's not exactly what you said, but that's the way my wizard brain translated it. I'm just done with this republic. I'm done with democracy. I'm not going to Fed post, but literally the only way forward is not voting anymore, and it's authoritarianism, in my opinion. And I think we need some sort of dictator or a king. Like we're so screwed. I'm kind of going on a tangent. Sorry.
No, you're good. And this is what I would say too. On top of that, this is why I think that it's very meaningful that we are the elite human capital that we need to be. And it is because what you had just said, right? When I go to say, no, I don't believe in democracy, right? I think it's a broken and failed project. I need to be able to back that up from A to B to C, all the way to Z, and then some. And that's where I think ultimately, like, there's this big issue, which is it's so easy to paint a lot of guys like around our camp as being these kind of like spurgs. And they just come off like really poorly substantiated, and then we get intermingled with like guys like Handsome Truth, right?
Oh God,
neo-pagan. Right, exactly. And and it makes everyone look bad because they'll throw us all in together, because they'll see this guy go to some kind of court hearing or community hearing, lobby hearing, whatever, and he'll sit there and say something like, here's all this Jewish stuff, But then he sits there and 2 seconds later calls Christianity like a Jewish like conspiracy.
Stop. Yeah.
Right. And it's like but we all get thrown into that because we're also like for one, the censorship apparatus, right? Because like our number one guy has basically been shoved into the darkest corner of the internet, and now he's only on Rumble and X. And what we have to do from there is understand we are going to get censored. So we have to go above and beyond to craft these messages that can get through to people. That it's not easy that you can just like delete that post because it says the hard R, right? Or delete that post because it's, it calls someone gay, things of that nature.
Yeah. I mean, Nick was, now I'm assuming you're talking about Nick, Cozy and Rumble is what you said. Yeah. Nick was shoved into the closet. My God. I mean, that
Right.
Candace and his interview with Candace is atrocious, only because of her, obviously. He wanted to talk about the war that was breaking out at the time, but in it, he was like, I mean, to be fair, you didn't go through half the shit I went through, or something along those lines. You didn't go through any real struggle, to be honest, compared to Nick. Nick was like buried at 18 years old, so he's had to claw his way out into the mainstream. Now he's on CNN, and I just tell my brother this today, and he's relatively a normie. He has traditional leaning views, but he is nowhere near where I am. But I was like, yeah, Nick is pretty much the de facto leader of the true right wing, not even like the far right, but obviously he's still under that branch, but just overall true, like what Elijah Schaefer's been saying recently, like the real right wing that is nationalistic and is race conscious, and we are Christians.
Yeah.
That is the real right wing, and Nick is like the front runner of it. Like, as much as the pagan Spurs hate it, and like we were saying earlier, we hate getting lumped in with the pagans, with the HTs, who's not even, is he even a pagan, or he's just anti-Christian? I don't even know.
I have no idea.
Yeah, I could care less. He trashes Christ. He trashes Christians. I reluctantly, or regrettably, I mean, I bought a few flags from his shop. Now I regret it. I wish I just bought straight from Paul. Paul has great merch, by the way, Paul Miller.
Yeah, Paul.
Yeah. Anyways,
I can see him a bit more than HT. I'm like less familiar with him. only know HT because he got like in a recent beef with like a strong Christian account on X. So I've just been kind of like watching it from the outside, kind of, break down, and it's just so bad. But he does represent some of those elements, right? Like what we talked about earlier, like he kind of walks in a little bit of this kind of like wigger, like, get up and dress. And it's like, that's like,
yep.
We don't need to hide into other racial like identities to be men. Like we need to just reclaim like what was the white man and what was like our idea of masculinity, and then hold it to be true, right? And then not be afraid of it, and then be like, no, the most masculine thing you can be is a father who stays home with his children and like sacrifices for his family. What are you talking about? Only pathetic weak cucks would go out on their family and go to prison. That's like where we have to move things to.
Yeah. You just mentioned HT. LP on the Daily Cope like a little over a week ago. HT was super chatting, and he was trying to get one in on him, like gotcha moments a few times, but then eventually he surrendered. But he's like, hey, would you be willing to do a debate? And so LP agreed, as long as he could bring Corey Mahler. So hopefully we'll see a Mahler and LP debate against HT and some other guy. I'm not, as you know, I'm Orthodox. I really like Mahler. I think he's wrong about like Lutheranism and how, from what I've heard earlier, without going too much off in a tangent, I think he said in a video, I think he might have been debating, who is the Catholic boomer guy who wrote the Jewish Revolutionary Spirit? What the hell is his name? I forgot the hell his name is. But
I know who you're talking about, though.
yeah, dude. I thought he was based, and he's like, oh no, racism is like a construct. The Jays use to divide us, like us goyim. I'm like, okay, buddy, yeah.
E. Michael Jones, thank you.
Oh, E. Michael Jones, thank you. Whoever said that in chat, screen's too small. Stevia, thank you, bud.
And that's
or Steve Splenda.
Cool. I mean, so are you familiar with the Backlash?
The Backlash?
Yeah.
I think is it a show? I've never really watched.
Yeah.
No, I've never watched it.
So they're brand new, And well, I say brand new. They've been around for a couple months, a few months now at least. And so, that has Vincent James on there and Dave Riley are like the two main guys. Obviously, most people know Vince James.
Yeah.
But Dave Riley, as far as I understand, was actually a like former like employee or associate of Michael Jones.
Mhm.
And so it's cool to see he's like on the opposite end of him, right? Like Dave Riley's in Fuentes camp, but Michael Jones and Fuentes like do not agree at all, especially on the grounds of race. And so it's kind of unique to see that where it's like even your own like acolyte, if you will, like jumped ship and like started his own show because he disagrees with you on that ground. And it's cool. I would recommend people to watch the Backlash like while it's still around, because I think like to me they're like my second favorite show, I guess, compared to like America First, if you will. So if there's no America First, I go listen to the Backlash, give you some insider information. That's for me at least.
I will keep that in mind, but I'm a historic derailer. I tell this to everyone, my priest, my brother, everyone I know. I tend to go on rabbit trails, but where I wanted to go with Mahler is he was debating Michael Jones. I believe he said in this interview, he was like, well, Lutheranism and generally Protestantism is for like the Germanic people, and then the Slavs have Orthodoxy, and the Mediterraneans have Catholicism. Like, dude, L take Orthodoxy, as you would know. I know you haven't been to a church yet, but you would know like it's for all people. As much as I am a white nationalist and I'm a Christian and I care for my country before all other people, I think Orthodoxy is the truth. I think it's for all people. I want you to be Orthodox in your own country. It is the truth. The truth is not limited to geographical region. That's retarded. I was actually talking about this with my priest today. It's like the Russians came over to Alaska and evangelized the Amerindians up there, and they like adapted parts of their culture and grafted Orthodoxy into it, and that's beautiful. So I know it's not the best example for what you and I are, but I mean, it's just retarded to say that like Protestantism's for the Northern Europeans and the Germans. Like, that's just stupid. I don't like that at all.
It's kind of like their argument too, right? It's like, if you look at it like very specifically, right? Like I kind of get that argument, which is largely America. It was Protestant. It's like not only was it like Christian, but it was like dominantly like Protestant, and there were deists
and Freemasonic. We can't forget it was very. Washington was a 33-degree Mason. I heard. I don't know if it's a Catholic conspiracy, but some Catholics like I don't know what his name was, but he Mike Lerner. He used to have a podcast back in the day. I called I'm Doing Great. He actually, his female co-host, actually convinced me and started discerning Orthodoxy. But on that show, Mike was talking about something. Oh my gosh, what the hell were we? Dude, I'm sorry, boomer brain. What were we just talking about before I brought this Mike guy?
We're talking about. We went from E. Michael Jones to Corey Mahler to America being Protestant.
Oh yeah. So sorry, forgive me. I'm trying to focus on too many things. I'm retarded. Forgive me, audience. I am weak and retarded. So what I was saying is, Mike was talking about, because he reverted to Catholicism. Mike was like, I'm hearing some theories that George Washington converted to Catholicism like on his deathbed. And I was like, I hope so. Because Freemasonry, especially when you get that high in Masonry, you're actually doing occultic, like Kabbalistic, basically that kind of satanic magic for goys. Like, it's really heavy stuff, and you're doing very evil garbage when you're that high up. And are you familiar? I don't want to take up. Do we have anyone else in the queue? So I'm not taking up too much time.
I believe we have two. I'm waiting for them to show up.
Okay.
Steve and Marcus both said they wanted to.
Wait. Oh, yeah. Whoa. Damn, Marcus. Glad you got out, dude. John Zerka. Go ahead. What were we saying?
No, I was just saying, your comment, right? Marcus being in Freemasonry. Glad he got out.
I'm sure you're familiar with John Zerka, right?
Yeah.
I like Zerka. Wild takes. Don't agree with him on everything, but he's very knowledgeable on esoteric stuff. And he sat down and he interviewed a 32nd degree Mason, and he was just clowning him, honestly. And this Mason acted like he almost like didn't even know what the hell his organization was even about, even though he's like right near the top. It's just shocking to me. I don't know how someone can be that high in this organization and you're getting schooled on what Freemasonry is.
That's funny. Well, I hate to cut it short, though, Mav. I do appreciate you.
No, it's fine.
Thank you very much. I am going to bring in Steve. But again, thank you very much, brother. I appreciate you.
Yeah, man. Sorry for being retarded. You have to go on.
So am I. It's just different degrees of it.
It's 33 degrees in retardation. That's me.
Right.
Seattle.
Well, I appreciate it, man. Thank you for coming on. I plan to do call-in shows more often. I'll find a better way to do it around. But I'm only got about 30 minutes left. I'm going to see what Steve's got to say. But thank you again, brother. I appreciate it.
God bless you.
All right, everybody. Shout out to Mav and Mr. Ortho. I'm going to bring in Steve. Make sure Steve, you put a message here. I don't know if Steve had said in particular. Okay, there we go. All right, Steve, welcome to the show. What is going on, bro?
Not much, man. I don't have a whole lot of time, but I just wanted to show some support and call in.
I appreciate it,
Mav, yeah, Mav was spitting. And I understand he's Orthodoxy. I have great respect for the Orthodox Church. I myself am Catholic. So a lot of the stuff he was talking about with Freemasonry and the Kabbalistic stuff, like, I totally agree. I'm in full support. Now, we have slight dogmatic differences within the East and the West. We've talked privately. So, like, we acknowledge that we have differences, but a lot of our framework comes from the original Apostolic Church. We would probably have different claims, but he was spitting, man. He was right. Dropping some heat, man. So that's tough to follow up someone like him. So shout out Mav. But I just wanted to touch on a little bit what you were going on earlier as far as this stuff with the possibility of the Obama investigation for the corruption into the campaign and all that stuff, the Russia hoax and all that.
Right.
And honestly, Mav was touching on this too really well, where I don't see anything coming from this. This seems more like a timing thing where it's like, I think Trump and his camp understand the base is like, it's not good. He's losing a lot of support. And what can they do to try to galvanize the support and unify their group, absent touching on the group of people we know they don't want to touch about, which would include, now I'm hearing a potential of bombing Iran again, which is something we don't want. And then the other one would be the Epstein thing, given the Mossad ties, which is another reason they don't want to touch that. So what's the low-hanging fruit? What is the distraction that they can use to maybe galvanize some support? And I think it would be going after Obama. But it's like, I'm to this point, because obviously I voted for him. We all threw our support for him, but we're disappointed. We're let down. Like, this to me seems a lot like arrest Hillary in 2016, where it's like, then when you had the chance, you didn't do it. So now it's like, oh, let me throw the arrest Obama card out there, where it's like, we all know nothing's going to happen. And this just seems like the timing where you want to galvanize your base, the timing of this, where it's like a lot of this has to do with avoiding Israel topics. So to me, I just want to know your thoughts deeper on that, where it's like, do we really anticipate or expect anything to happen with these investigations with Obama? Like, they'll probably dangle a bunch of flashy emails or maybe some, oh, we have this report in this binder, and then they'll keep everybody happy and twerking for 3 months. But it's like, well, we're bombing Iran and we're getting involved in another Middle Eastern war. We're burying the Epstein files even farther. So what are your thoughts?
So my thoughts is, I think and here's the one thing, right? So one thing to keep in mind is the fact that Trump's not going to be serving a term after this. So his need to actually appease the base is non-existent. It's really only so much as to like maintain enough support so that like people aren't doing, signing petitions or going full in on wanting to get you impeached, so it's kind of like maintaining it so you can keep it as least bumpy ride as possible. I don't think anyone's getting arrested. I don't think Obama's getting arrested. I don't think anyone from the Epstein files is getting arrested. I think that they are going off of a belief. Now, if it's true, that's up to the American people to show. But I think that they're going off a belief of one of two things. They either believe that the American people are so subjugated and so saturated with escapism that even if they told them to their face, hey, child abusers actually operate and own your country, that they think that we're too pathetic to do anything beyond just complain online about it.
Right.
Or was the original plan, which I think has already backfired, was the original plan to leverage how retarded the average person is and then use all of your top brass influencers like Charlie Kirk and everyone who's already in the pocket of Zion Don to kind of like massage these messages out and just keep, lying to the people. So they just kind of go along with it. And that's where I'm thinking, well, what's the next step? What is the next step? And now I'm kind of thinking extreme kind of 8D chess. Part of me thinks, is this going to be a way so that JD Vance can position himself in some way as being better than Trump? Maybe at some point along this way that JD Vance comes out and says, you know what, we can't do this anymore, Trump. We have to release those files. And then now he gets perceived as like, oh, wow, JD Vance is so based. And then people start supporting him, not realizing that this guy is the Manchurian candidate. He is the creation of Peter Thiel. Yep. And that's the fifth element of the theater, which is the hero comes in, everyone eats it up, only that to realize all this published information from 10 years ago, he was created and brought in by Peter Thiel. And the only reason he even knows Trump is because of Peter Thiel. And so I kind of have fears on that end, because that's what I'm trying to think of. What is the end goal, right? Is the end goal to hold the line long enough that the Republican base can get fractured so the Democrats come back in for 8 years and then we don't get anything at all?
Right.
And so I guess I'm trying to think what is the overall goal from the top, from the administration? And ultimately, I think some of these things are getting forced by their hand, right? I don't know if you had seen, but Netanyahu's position, I think, moved to a minority position there in Israel. They're having a lot of domestic pressures. There's a lot of Israelis who don't want him to even be in office. Obviously, the ICC court wants him as well. Right. And so, you get this report that a lot of the Trump advisors are like, this guy's a madman because he's just bombing Syria, right? Damascus bombed, a Syrian convoy bombed. And so there's an element too that's like, they're probably just trying to do the most they can to let everyone think that they're doing something, but meanwhile they're just holding it over. So when the deep state can come into power for the next 10 years, and it'll be unquestioned. Because if Donald Trump is the best that's the best that we can suffice out of this system, then I think the whole thing needs thrown away, right? If the most we can do and the best candidate that anyone's had in the last 30 years is this guy, and all he can do is say that women don't need to be in men's sports, okay, it's over.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, especially given the climate we're dealing right now with a lot of these, how do I want to say this? The veil has been dropped and you're seeing the narrative, you're seeing guys like Nick, Myron hit the algorithm way more. So it's like these, we were talking in the Discord, they're on with Nelk boys. So it's like you can't put the genie back in the bottle. So it's out there. So it's just damage control until the way I look at it is this is biblical, man. So it's like, what is the end goal? I think we know. So it's obviously anti-Christian. We know that because of all the dwellings and dealings in that certain country in the Middle East, where it's like, we know what they want to usher in. So if we're talking end goal, that to me is ultimately what it is. And it's like, can we notice signs? Can we take things from tradition in scripture where we look at these and we're like, okay, this lines up. This is, as Christians, we should be expecting this. These are the tough times. But yeah, I don't have too much time left, brother, but I wanted to call in and, give a few minutes of my thoughts and everything. And hell yeah, you're doing a great job, brother. But hey, Christ is God.
Amen.
And peace, everybody in the chat. Everybody stay blessed.
Amen. I appreciate that. Thank you for coming on, brother.
Yes, sir.
Thank you very much.
Do it again, hopefully.
Yes, sounds good to me. And I'll see you in the Discord too, buddy.
Yes, sir.
That was Steve, everybody. And thanks, Steve, for coming on. I do appreciate that very much. If Marcus is still in here and Marcus wants to come on, I definitely have enough time for one more caller as well. Wanted to add that caveat if he's still in here, as well as anybody else too. I just wanted to give that to Marcus. I know he had mentioned it, and I just haven't seen him in the on my back end yet. And again, yeah, thank you very much for Steve. Okay, looks like Marcus is still in here. Okay, has he been given a DM yet for the StreamYard link? If not, I can do it myself, Marcus. Let me see. Let me find the disco. Where is the disco? Okay, looks like you got tagged. Okay, looks like Buck tagged you a little bit ago, actually. I will wait to see you pop up then inside the back end here. I'm sure they're going to send you a link here soon. There was one thing I wanted to move on to. Oh yeah, it was in the element of, obviously what is the end goal? Where do we move from here? What is the, the future vision for where we're at? And that's also, roping in this kind of, the elite human capital. And one thing I wanted to say, right, was people are kind of like, well, Nick's coming on YouTube now, right? Myron Gaines is, hitting the algorithm, right? IG, right? Instagram had a period where I think they nuked a lot of them since then, but they did have a period of time where a lot of these Fuentes clips were going viral, right? And it was like, I think the main meme was like me at dinner, and it's him like, listen, it's white people don't do that. And it's just funny. Well, I think with that goes in line with what I had said with who is here in the very beginning, which was, isn't it a little bit questionable that all of a sudden this mass noticing is happening all at once right now? Marcus, it looks like you're still not in here. I'm going to make sure I grab an invite link, but I'll get this point across first. And so obviously Nick's on YouTube. I put Nick on YouTube myself. You can see it from other people as well, right? Secular Talk, Kyle Kalinske. I've seen a few other channels actually start doing this a lot more as well. And I think there does come into the framing of there. It's still a business decision. And if YouTube bans so many people that you do get a mass exodus and you're starting to see a mass amount of numbers of people going elsewhere, you're not going to want to bleed all the way out to Rumble. You're going to want to be like, okay, relax it a little bit. Let these guys be on somewhat. Don't be so censorious. And then boom. And there you go. Marcus, I did see you in here. I was going to get ready to bring you up there. That was correct. You were in the right spot. I saw you there. Looks like Marcus is getting ready to be on here. And I do appreciate you guys coming in here and doing this. The next time I do a call-in show, I'll try and have a better kind of redirect. And I'll probably also do it with Vito.ninja instead of StreamYard. All right, everybody, here's Marcus. What is up, brother?
What's up, family? Yo, what up? My God. No, I'm just at work right now. I didn't know if it was going to be like camera or nothing like that. I didn't oh shit. I thought it was going to be a call-in, fam.
No, it's perfect. You don't have to use the camera if you don't want to, but I appreciate it.
No, you good. You good. Man, look, man, I just want to say, first and foremost, bro, I love what you do. Love the chat. And I love what y'all do. And, this stuff it's not easy to do because I almost feel like, yo, this stuff gonna come back. I mean, if you get to a certain point, all this stuff, they're gonna try to come up, dig stuff on you. So, so you're taking it. Shit, man. Yeah, so I just appreciate it, bro. I really do. I just appreciate what you do, man. I pray for you. I pray for a lot of us every night. Sometimes I forget here and there, but most of the time, probably like 3 to 4 times a week, I be praying for everybody, bro. And it's kind of scary because yeah, bro. And it's kind of scary because it's like, man, bro, I was a Trump guy from 2015 up to now, bro. And I'm from Texas. And I lived in California in 2015. So I had the MAGA hat on 2015, bro. I couldn't go to my mama's house. I couldn't go to my friend's house. My buddy told me, man, my old boss, who was like a mentor, like a father figure,
right?
Said I couldn't talk to him anymore. Bro, I went to his mom and father's funeral, bro. And then like 6 months later, I can't, I'm like, persona non grata, just because I voted for Trump, bro. I came to your bro, now that hurt. That was like a father figure, bro, because I didn't have a father growing up. So so that hurt and everything. And hold on, my boss is like talking too loud. But anyway, but yeah, so that hurt right there. And it's cool because my boss, he's a Trump guy. But I said I've been told I'm not a Trump guy anymore. But yeah, but yeah, like so that happened, and bruh, it's weird. I really Trump is compromised. He's compromised, bro. He's compromised, and yeah, and now we just gotta stay steadfast on discernment, bro. Like, because I didn't get the vax, you know what I'm saying? So I'm good on that. Didn't get the vax, and we just gotta pray for discernment, bro, and just stay steadfast in the word, dog. And it is what it is. He's a human being, and I'm glad that the fact that we could say, hey, I'm not a Trump guy anymore. I'm America first. I'm not part of MAGA. I mean, I'm America first, but it's just to the point where, like, now I'm starting to see Alex Jones. It's just Alex Jones just can't let it go. Like, it's hard for him to accept. Yep. It's even hard for Alex Jones. Alex, hey, and see, this is what happens when you make a politician your fucking idol. Right. This is what happens. That's what happens. Alex made Trump his idol, and so many. I really like the guy, but I was more for his policies, bro. Then so that's how I could say, okay, he's not our guy. He's not our guy. My faith is in Christ. Ultimately, that's why I don't have this. That's why I'm not trying to cope. Like, and it breaks my heart to see Alex Jones coping. You know what I'm saying? You would think he'll be more like Owen Schroyer. Owen, he's like. Then they're like, man, this is it, man.
Well, so listen, I'm gonna respond real quick. You have a little bit of echo. I'm just gonna mute you for just a second.
Okay.
And you brought up a bunch of great points, Marcus. The first would be, all the sacrifices you made when you were going through being a Trump supporter, right? Family members cutting you off. You have the vaccination, right? All of these ways, you're getting excised from society because you were willing to put your name behind that guy. And then knowing you did all that, and then it turns out to be like this, I mean, you're pissed off. You went through all of that. You were willing to lose social reputation and the political climate to support that guy. And here he is. He's right behind you with a smirk and a bloody knife. And you realize, I just got stabbed in the back. Like, what just happened? And, in the secondary point you go to, right, which he's compromised and having to put, faith in where we actually need to be putting faith, not idolizing these politicians, right? And it's sad to watch Alex Jones try to do this kind of coping for Trump and try to just, 8D chess, 9D chess, 12D chess, we're figuring it out. But I think the most astute point that you had made in there, which is we as Christians, when you do put your faith in God and not other men and other, anything as an idol, that's why they fear. Christians are always the biggest threat to establishments. They fear that because Christians believe in something greater than what is on this earth, right? And so we are the people who go, nah, like, you can be a tyrant all you want. I'm not submitting. Chop, here, you on my neck? Chop it. Take it. Because I'm not going to stand for that. But I'm going to go ahead and unmute you again so you can respond.
Yeah, I totally agree. I agree. And it's like my grandma used to say, baby, we're in the last days. Man, it's getting more and more closer to that, man, because it's just like, hey, take it all. And I believe that COVID was just like a precursor to it all. COVID was a precursor, bro, because we couldn't, bro, I lived in California at that time, bro, when that shit was happening. And then I moved to Canada for a year. Bro, I couldn't go nowhere, bro.
That's wild. Because you would have needed the vax to get through the border. You would needed to probably go to a different province.
Bro,
that's crazy.
Bro, I was a real nigga at that point, bro. I was just
right.
I'm done. My sister-in-law, she worked as a nurse, so I paid her like $100 and some to write out the vaccine cards and for me and shit. I lost jobs. Old girl and my ex didn't want to mess with me. Like, bro, I'm telling you, bro, we all took a little hit. If you stay 10 toes down, you took a real hit. But I feel like we're so vindicated now.
Right.
And honestly, even with the Trump thing, okay, I got it wrong, but at least I didn't idolize this man where I couldn't walk away, bro.
Right.
You know,
It
you
was
ain't
to a
gonna
point.
ever have me sounding. You ain't gonna have nothing. You ain't gonna have me sounding like Alex, bro. And I don't know who else is trying to coach.
Like Charlie
Man.
and Boomer.
Oh,
Yeah, Levin. Yeah, there's a lot
bro.
of them still. Cat Turd.
Yeah, okay. See, this is one thing that us Christians need to realize and remember, bro. It's a lot of okay. And I try to check myself on this too. We all got to check our hearts, bro. If we're really saved or self-deceived.
Right.
If you're saved or really self-deceived, because a lot of Christians are going to be a lot of Christians are self-deceived, bro. Charlie Kirk, he's Charlie Kirk. Charlie Kirk, Matt Walsh, Michael Knowles, bro. Honestly, now you judge a man by his fruit. That's also in the Bible too. But you got to discern, bro. Christ says there will be many that come to me and say, Lord, Lord, I did this in your name. I did cast out demons in your name. I did, but I would tell them, depart from me. I don't know you. Depart from me. You work as something. I never knew you.
Yeah.
That's Michael Knowles. That's Matt Walsh. That's Charlie Kirk. These guys who profess to be Christians, but you could tell they are bound to something. They're bound to something.
Right.
They're bound to something that they are so afraid to break away from. And we all know what it is.
Right.
We all know what it is, bro.
Right.
Man,
and part of it's money too. You know, I do think part of it's money.
Yeah.
You know, like look at the Candace Owens interview with Nick Fuentes. Like, what did she stand to gain from the extra 40 grand she made off of it rather than just dropping it on X? And your husband's like a multimillionaire. It's like, this doesn't make sense at a certain point, you know? And then you kind of look at Matt Walsh's takes on marriage. It's like, wow, like fantastic take about marriage up there from your ivory tower. You know, like, you've been in the dating market the last 10 years.
And Michael Knowles finally said something about when the Christians got when Israel bombed that church. He finally says something, and he's like, "Yeah." I was like, "Bro, come on." I'm like, "Bro, these people are so fucking fake, dude." And like, remember, most people will go. I mean, we got to remember this, bro, and examine your heart daily, bro. Most people are going to go to hell, and most people who profess to be Christians are going to go to hell.
Right,
bro.
The path is narrow.
That's Christ preached about hell more than Christ preached more about hell than he did about heaven.
Right.
Like, I gotta remember, I'm from the South. I'm from the South, so it's like sin and hellfire Christians, like, you know what I'm saying? But people like Christ preached that. Christ preached more about hell than he did heaven, bro. That tells you something. And he even said it to himself, like many will something, but few will find the way. Few versus many.
Am I getting you in trouble at work?
No, he acting like this. I'm almost done. But yeah.
Yeah, no, and I completely agree, man. You know, and I know you're probably at work, so you probably need to get going. And I only got a few minutes left, anyways.
Okay.
But I do appreciate you being on here, man. Appreciate being able to see you and talk to you for the first time.
Yes, sir, man.
And I completely agree. You know, and that's why I said, you know, with the caller previously, right? Like, if we can't even get to a position where the majority of the country is willing to be a Christian nation, I mean, like everything else beyond that is like, what's the point, right? And so that's where I'm kind of at too, where we got to start recognizing like who are these fake Christians, right, in the conservative wing, and also like those who might even be a little bit misled themselves. But when you see people like Joel Berry in the Babylon Bee just blatantly just saying like, oh, those kids died because they were Hamas supporters, it's like, dude, that's a certain level of hatred that's reached that guy's heart that is like, it's dangerous now, because he's ultimately leading other Christians to think that's okay to think as well too. Massive these guys, you know, it's just sad. It really is sad.
It's just a reprobate mind.
Yes, and I do appreciate you coming on, man. It was a pleasure talking to you, and I'll probably do this sometime next week, I think. I'll try to. Okay. But I appreciate it very much. Take care, and I'll see you next time. Peace. Yeah, everybody, that was Marcus. I see him every so often, occasionally. He always comes in with the best chats. a very anti-Daily Wire, and so am I. So very thankful for Marcus coming in here. I do appreciate that very much. And one thing I had it on screen the whole time. I was going to ask him about the Freemasonry thing. I completely forgot about that, so it's my bad, guys. We are running out of time. I wasn't paying attention to chat. Hopefully nobody else wants to come up for a call, because I'm good for the calls for right now. I'm going to go ahead and wind down, do about 5 minutes more, get that 2 hour mark, and then kind of be out of here and on my way. The one thing that I didn't end up touching on, which I did want to, and I'll be quick about it, is the fact that, yes, you might have heard multiple times, might have seen it in the chat too, that there was the Nelk Boys podcast. Now, they interviewed Netanyahu, but I have not seen the Netanyahu portion. I've only seen like one clip and a photo, so I'm not really sure like how they played it. But what I do know is that what followed that shortly after was they had Nick Fuentes on, like literally like 30 minutes to an hour after the podcast released. Now, part of me thinks that is a little bit of, they weren't ready for the backlash they're going to get, or the the PR nightmare that was going to be for them. But so they had Nick on. After Nick, I believe they had Hassan on, and then Myron Gaines was on. And so the reason why I'm bringing that up is because people do need to understand that the majority of what you see that's presented in front of you is theater, or it was paid to be there. It's paid sentiment, if you will, right? So these influence campaigns. And so, with that, and again, House AI being an absolute animal, because there's Israel support's been dropping, right? This is kind of what was the foundation or the premise of why, Mr. Beanie wearing Tim Pool, or Pim Tool, if you will, lost his mind when Kim Iverson and many others had reported on the fact that he did have a secret meeting with Netanyahu. Now, the reason they had this meeting was the same reason why they're having another meeting right now, and they're paying for this tour. There is an active push from Israeli government, and they're going to spend money for it. And in this recent instance, $86,000 for a tour for 16 influencers, because they want to push the pro-Israel sentiment in this country, and it is because they do see the writing on the wall. So I have the exact number here, at least from AF Post. Let me see if I can pull it up here. So Israel's support has actually dropped by a considerable amount. So according to a new poll, only 23% of Americans believe Israel's actions in Gaza are fully justified, down 27% from 2023, which is a massive drop-off, because that goes from half the country to a quarter of the country. That is a lot of people to have all of a sudden change their opinions. And again, I do think it is because they're losing that kind of PR, battle at large. Now, from that, though, the article that I have here in front of me is from, I think it's called the Conservative, what was it called? Consortium News. So Israeli government is paying to have 16 different MAGA influencers brought to Israel so they can learn about Israel, so they can stop American youth from turning against Israel. And from that, so they're paying $86,000 on these 16 influencers to go there. And this is, again, the reaction to the significant drop-off in public opinion. And so of those that were brought, apparently all of them were under the age of 30, again, targeting the younger demographics. And they had anywhere from hundreds of thousands to millions of followers. And so they do intend, they listed a long-term goal. They do intend to bring out more than 500 influencers over there. So expect your boy to go kiss the wall. Just kidding. That is a joke. I'm gonna pretend so I can get an invite to Israel and then crash out. And so the point with me saying that is because today, what I wasn't expecting was that Nelk Boys podcast released that was obviously giving Netanyahu a platform. And now they're going out and they're doing this kind of, they're the Nelk Boys seemingly were freaking out. At least Steiny was. I don't know about the other guy, but it seemed like they weren't ready for all the backlash that they were getting ready to get from that on that end. And it's just to make a point that largely you don't know, right? When you look at a post on X, when you're watching a video, when you're watching, when something appears in your feed, you don't know at the end of the day, unless you have good intuition, or you have insight, or you've been following somebody, or you don't know if someone was paid to post that, right? You don't know if they were paid to have this opinion. You don't know if they were paid to have that sentiment. Now, you can make some pretty good guesses and follow the money and kind of just, have your own opinion based on what's being said, or kind of follow. Maybe they have a change of heart rather quickly. It doesn't make sense, but then they have a meeting with somebody and you're like, oh, okay, that makes sense. there is, because so much of what was happening, right, is not kinetic warfare. It is this battle of intelligence. It is this battle of information. That's why I do think ultimately a part of being the elite human capital and being proud of who you are is also knowing who you are, but also having a strong defense mechanism and being able to sniff out what's in front of you is propaganda, what was paid to be there, and what is actually organic opinion. And that's more of a broader take. And I said this a few shows ago, but this is like, I mean, we are in a very, very, very dangerous period. And so we need to, especially as men, we need to be paying attention. You need to find time out of your day to be able to make sure you're reading about what's going on around you, right? No more of this like hiding, covering your head, putting your head in the sand and going and playing Call of Duty while the rest of the country gets raped. It can't happen that way. We will never get what we want without that happening. And so ultimately, I guess I'll leave it on this. My end goal with what I'm doing, right, with this, is because I want to be in the position like an Elijah Schaefer, who can build his own media empire and hire guys that he thinks have talent and bring people on because you're moving towards, because they are aligned with where you are, right? Bringing my guys, our guys, right? This is a form of nepotism, and it is good that we're doing it, right? We want to be uplifting and interlocking Christian men and pushing for those men to be in the positions near the levers of power. That's what we have to do. We have to collectivize, and obviously collectivize in a way that doesn't get a target painted on our backs. But that is my goal. That is why I have the Discord. That is why I continually try to reach out to mods and bring guys in, because I believe in the guys that I've pulled around me, right? I believe in each one of these guys that I communicate with and have private messages with. Like, I can see the intelligence from these men. I want it to be the voices that people hear, not Ben Shapiro, not Charlie Kirk. I want people to hear Marcus Young. I want people to hear Punished Mav. I want people to hear Steve Splenda, because every single one of those guys, I would take their opinion over some bullshit processed, FDA approved thing that Charlie Kirk got sanitized before he said it. And that's the same thing. It goes, for House and all these guys. And that's my kind of end goal, right? It's to compete against these people, compete against all this establishment. And even if that means we have to move to Rumble or do whatever, that's the goal. The goal is to compete with the system, dominate it, conquer it, own it, manipulate it, make it ours again. And then, maybe we could talk about the details from there. That's where I'm going to go ahead and kind of leave it. I appreciate it very much, guys. This is a great success. And again, huge thank you to the moderators. Everybody say thank you to Donnie and House and Tix and Titan if he's in here, for helping coordinate this and set it up. And again, thanks for everybody for being a part of it, joining in, calling in, signing up. I do appreciate it tremendously. Obviously, if I did a call-in show with no callers, that would be a waste of everyone's time. So with that, Christ is King, Christ is Lord, Christ is God, and Jesus was his name. I hope you guys do have a good rest of your night. And man, we just march on. And again, make sure you join the Discord if you haven't already. We want to see more people in there. And again, you're probably going to see a change of direction and a change of pace for me now that I'm back to being a solo act. And obviously, I want to bring in you guys to be, host, co-host, have spots, do stuff like that as well. So until next time, and I appreciate it very much. You guys take it easy, and I will see you maybe Wednesday. I don't know if I'll have Tuesday video, but maybe Wednesday. I'll see you guys then. Take care.
The chains clink, hear the echo in the fog of the land. Dollar bills on the leash, gripped tight by the hand. Eagles clip, can't fly, wings covered in grime. Statues cry, tears of oil, rusted gears at a time. Never bow, never break, never simping again. Simping's a sickness, let the truth be the pen. Trust the plan, they said, but look where we stand. A chessboard flip, now it's war in the sand. Puppet strings pulled tight, marionettes in the hall. Politicians dance smooth while the empire falls. Mountains of debt, can't climb, can't crawl. Truth buried deep beneath the Capitol walls. Drums of war beat heavy, echo loud in the haze. Promises shattered like glass in a maze. Voices scream betrayal, trapped in the blaze. The flag waves torn, lost in forgotten days. Never bow, never break, never simping again. Simping's a a sickness, let the truth be the pen. Trust the plan, they said, but look where we stand. A chessboard flip, now it's war in the sand. Never bow, never break, never simping again. Simping's a sickness, let the truth be the pen. Trust the plan, they said, but look where we stand. A chessboard flip, now it's war in the sand. Trump card played wrong, now the deck's in their hands. Deal signed in the dark, bleeding out the land. Fist clenched, eyes sharp, time to make a stand. Own our future, no pawn, just a king in demand. Trump card played wrong, now the deck's in their hands. Deal signed in the dark, bleeding out the land. Fist clenched, eyes sharp, time to make a stand. Own our future, no pawn, just a